Residents in flood-ravaged far north Queensland are returning home to a scene of utter devastation. Just 5 days out from Christmas, there's a sense of despair as the massive clean-up gathers pace. Streets are stricken with debris, dead cows on pristine beaches and rotting fish washed up in local parks. There are also grave fears for an 85-year-old man who's been missing since Sunday. Our reporters in the region have the latest from Cairns to Port Douglas. Kristy Sexton-McGrath begins our coverage.
A holiday season full of heartache.
I'm going through stage 3 or whatever it is today, and a bit more emotional today.
Kate Campbell's home, a filthy, mud-soaked mess.
What about that furniture down there?
The mud army's rolled up, the community spirit shining through.
Right down here, we're coming up to a few more steps here.
But the gravity of this disaster is just starting to hit home now the rain's eased.
Pretty heart-wrenching that a lot of people don't have contents insurance, so they can't get most of the stuff replaced.
At nearby Holloways Beach, this father has lost almost everything he owns.
I don't see much of a Christmas coming, that's for sure.
The streets are littered with debris. It's a disaster the far north will be grappling with for months.
We're alive, we're safe, so that's all we can ask for.
From first light, the Army recommenced mass evacuations from the small community of Wujal. The Townsville-based Chinooks flying women and children out first to the safety of Cooktown. Entire towns like Rossville, just south of there, are still isolated with roads cut. Belle Newman has 4 children under 5 and supplies are dwindling.
We've probably got at least 5 days of stuff.
There are grave fears for an 85-year-old man missing north of Cairns.
Police have accessed his property but still not been able to locate him.
Dead cows litter beaches and wild barramundi lay rotting in a Cairns park.
It was devastating really to see the damage to the infrastructure, the beaches. It'll take a long time to recover.
And it is yet another kick in the teeth for tourist operators.
Flashbacks of the COVID pandemic and the big old unknown, it's going to hurt us a lot. Not just financially, that's going to be a massive loss, but reputation-wise.
While the human side of this disaster is still unfolding, it's also an agricultural catastrophe. This region is a food bowl and produces bananas, mangoes and sugar for the rest of the country. Cane fields are saturated and there is no way of getting crops to the local sugar factory after a railway bridge washed away.
All our cane comes across this river and there's no other way to get it across.
13 weeks of income support is now available for those who can't work. And a flood appeal has been launched as those who are high and dry try to keep up the Christmas spirit. Kristy Sexton-McGrath, ABC News.
North of Cairns, the tourist town of Port Douglas remains isolated due to road closures. Tour boats have become charter services, taking stranded residents home and delivering much-needed supplies as businesses struggle to save the holiday season.
An urgent haul arrives in Port Douglas. Fishing boats, now delivery vessels, bringing necessities to an isolated town.
We can't get any supplies at all, so we're using the boats. So a load of water, as you can see, because all the water's out right now, and all the fruit and veg and fish and suppliers and dairy and all that kind of stuff.
The Captain Cook Highway between Cairns and Port Douglas has been blocked by landslides after days of torrential rain, meaning supplies and people haven't been able to get through.
Well, they've been saying it could be up to a month. So tourism in Port Douglas is going to suffer a lot, especially over Christmas and into January.
The typically bustling tourist town's eerily quiet, just days out from Christmas.
Obviously, a lot of people has cancelled their travel. Obviously, they can't get to the airport to Port Douglas at the moment.
Reef cruises have found new patronage, ferrying home residents who've been stranded in Cairns.
So I haven't been home since before Jasper. I've got to get this little guy home so he's looked after.
We then had a funeral to get to on the weekend as well, so we had to fly down to Melbourne, and we're just waiting to assess all the water damage that could have possibly happened while we were away. We were lucky we had a lot of friends and everything checking on the house, running the generator for us.
In Mossman, businesses and residents are still assessing the damage after floods tore through the town earlier this week.
We're going to be out of a pocket by a lot from what we can see. I won't say Merry Christmas. It's Christmas. There's nothing merry about it, I'm sorry to say. It really makes me feel emotional, but anyway.
It's likely the clean-up will take quite some time, but locals are urging tourists not to be deterred. A key part of the recovery will be the return of visitors.
You know, Christmas, New Year's Eve, all the way to sometimes to the end of January is when we keep working, and then it sort of quiets down. So we definitely need this trade to then push all businesses through.
Christopher Testa, ABC News, Port Douglas.
Live now to reporter Victoria Pengilly, who's in Cairns. Victoria, how many communities are still isolated?
Well, Jess, the latest figure we have is that around 35 communities across the region still remain cut off by floodwaters. Now, authorities have been in touch with some of those people who are isolated, but areas further north of me, like Wonga Beach, Cow Bay, Daintree Village, are expected to remain isolated for several days. Now, the situation here is very much moving from response to recovery mode, but several thousand homes are still without power tonight. Around 80% of those homes and businesses are expected to be reconnected by tomorrow night, and crews are working very hard to try and reconnect everyone by Christmas Eve. Now, we know around 1,700 homes have been impacted by this flood disaster, but the true scale of the disaster will take some days to truly be known. Now, just the thing we're really hearing from people on the ground here is desperate calls for more donations. Things like clothes, food, fuel and medicine are in short supply. So if you live in the Cairns region and you haven't already tapped into that Christmas spirit, now's the time to do so and donate where you can. Jess?
Yeah, I'm sure people will be generous if they can be. Victoria, thank you so much.